You know, it is so obvious now. It is so obvious the way that leftism poisons our debates on both sides, because leftism can make right-wingers stupid too. It is amazing. It's like this kind of poison gas that makes everybody stupid. And we're seeing it right now on Twitter, especially. But the problem is when you're not talking about the truth, this is the whole problem with leftism. When you're not talking about the truth, you have to censor and silence the other side. So when you silence the truth, what's left? Only the lies. Only the liars on the left and right are left to debate things, and that is why the debate becomes poisonous and all of us become stupid. Over this last holiday, really over the last few weeks, Twitter has now gone full fascist. It is now basically silencing the account of anyone who says anything they dislike. And I don't know if it's because, this is what Dorsey, went before Congress, swore to tell the truth and said he was not going to do. And they are regulated by a regulation that says they are free of the responsibility of publishers to tell the truth because they are providing a forum for all opinions. But now they have defined anything they disagree with as hatred. So here are the things that you can't say now on Twitter. There was Laura Loomer. Laura Loomer, if you don't know about her, she's a kind of right-wing provocateur. She's not, they call her far-right because they call everybody far-right. But she's certainly disavowed the alt-right. She's disavowed white supremacy, as have I. She's done some things that I disagree with, like she's the one who disturbed the Julius Caesar performance in Central Park in New York because she didn't like the fact that they were attacking Trump. I don't agree with that. I think free speech is for everybody. But basically, she is a kind of right-wing provocateur. And she sent out a tweet complaining about the fact that everybody is talking about the diversity of the new Democratic Congress people who are going to Congress in January. And they keep pointing to Ilhan Omar, the Muslim congresswoman-elect, one of two. And she pointed out, Laura Loomer pointed out, that Ilhan Omar is pro-Sharia and and pro-female genital mutilation. And under Sharia, homosexuals are oppressed and killed, and women are abused and forced to wear the hijab. And Ilhan, as she goes on to say, is anti-Jewish. All of that is true, by the way. That happens to be true. Her Twitter account was shut down, but Louis Farrakhan, who says Jews are termites on Twitter, Jews are termites, he's still up there. So now we know Sharia is okay on Twitter, Jews are termites. Who else? Meghan Murphy, a leftist, a founder of the Feminist Current website. She's been suspended for Twitter. She says she's a socialist, she's a radical feminist, but she points out that men aren't women, right? That transgenderism may be a phenomenon, but that doesn't mean that just because you feel, man, I feel like a woman, doesn't mean, man, you are a woman. It just means you're a man who feels like a woman, or possibly you're Shania Twain. But the thing is, Murphy was settled for that. So now we know men are women and Jews are termites. That's the world of Twitter. That is the poisonous world these guys are creating with their random censorship of things they happen to disagree with. Jesse Kelly, an Iraq war veteran, a former GOP congressional candidate. Also, he's a guy who, he plays a part, kind of like me. He says funny things, and he twits on Twitter, or vice versa. He tweets on Twitter. He tweaks the left by saying funny things, and if you're a right-winger, you think he's funny, and if you're a left-winger, you don't. They just took him off. He just shut down. No reason given at all. So all of these things, we now know men are women, Sharia is great, Jews are termites on Twitter. That is what Twitter believes, because that we can tell because they're shutting down anything that they don't believe. Now, what does that do? What does it do to all of us? It's interesting. A lot of people are saying that now social media should be regulated more strongly because, of course, if they're not going to adhere to the rules where they are a platform for everybody, if they're not going to adhere to those rules, then they can be sued by anybody who has been lied about on Twitter. If somebody said something about you on Twitter, that you don't like you're a fascist or something, you should now be able to sue Twitter just as you would sue a publisher if they publish things like that. The only reason Twitter cannot be sued is because they're a platform, which means they let everybody speak, like the phone company. So some people are saying this. Other people are saying, hey, you know what? These sites are now collapsing. Their stocks are collapsing. People are going off them. They're looking for sites where they won't be censored. And so why don't we just let them die? If we start to regulate them, we'll give them new life. So that's another way of looking at it too. But I want to just I want to pause for a minute. want to talk specifically about transgenderism, not because I care so much about transgenderism, but because I want to use it as an example of what happens to a debate when only lies are allowed, okay? Because this is what's happening on Twitter, and it also happens on the mainstream media, and it's how we all become stupid. But look, let's talk about transgenderism for a minute. There is no question that there is such a thing as people who feel uncomfortable in their skin, in the gender they were born. Men are born, and people are born either male or female. It's the first thing every mom wants to know. Is it a boy or is it a girl? Dads too. That's the first thing we want to know, because it's a different life. Men and women have different kinds of lives, human lives, lives in the image of God, but different. Now, traits are spread out. Like, think of them like little dots spread out on a spectrum. Most of the male traits fall with men. Most of the female traits fall with women. But, there's a range, and all men have some female traits, unless they're just absolute psychopaths. Same thing with women. Women have traits that are mostly associated with men. But sometimes things get mixed up. It's nature. It's not perfect. And somebody gets so many female traits, a guy gets so many female traits that he feels that he's a woman inside. Listen. We admire manly men and we admire womanly women for obvious reasons, right? The world depends on them. The world depends on men who can protect women, men who can support women, men who can support and protect their children, and women who care for and nurture their children. So we like tenderness and nurturance in women, and we admire strength and responsibility in men. Those are things that we admire because they make the world go round. They are central to human life. Those traits, manly men and womanly women, are central to human life, and that's why we admire them. But just because something is not central doesn't mean we have to condemn it. Some things outside of the center are good, like a genius musician is not a normal person, right? But we love that. Some things outside the center are bad, like a serial killer. Most people are not serial killers, but that's bad. We have to make judgments in each case. And obviously, if somebody is not hurting anybody, but he's out of keeping with his sexual orientation or his body, it's none of our business. It's nobody's business. The world is filled with tragedy, filled with pain, filled with hatred and meanness. The least we can do is extend our love to people who might be in some kind of discomfort or psychological pain. It is not a lot to ask that we can be kind about this. You can have and express, or should be able to have and express, any opinion you want. If you're a small-minded person and you think, he thinks he's a girl, so he's going to hell, that's fine. That's not what Jesus says, by the way. Just saying it, just pointing it out. But the thing is, I think for most of us, we just want to be tolerant of people with their problems. We all have problems. We all have dysfunctions. There's nothing mentally ill or sick about saying, I have this issue, about a guy saying, hey, I really don't feel like a man. I really feel uncomfortable. He's going to try and solve that any way he can. I think we should be very careful not to impose this stuff on children who have not defined themselves yet. We shouldn't impose anything. We shouldn't impose, just because a young boy walks in with a doll, that doesn't mean you zip him off to a doctor and pump him full of chemicals. That is child abuse, but we don't have to hate on people. If a guy is a little bit effeminate, it may make us uncomfortable. We don't have to hate on people. All this stuff is obvious. I'm sure we all agree. Nothing mentally ill about it. There is something nuts about a guy coming and saying that he's a woman. Even after he's had an operation, he's still not a woman. Every cell in his body is a man's cell. He is whatever he is. And because he knows that that's not true, because he knows that he is telling a lie, because he knows it's not right for him, for instance, to compete in a sporting event against girls who have worked hard to become excellent at their sport, but can be overcome in an instant by somebody who's really a man dressed up as a woman, or having turned his body into a woman costume, obviously that's nuts. So when you have people on TV who say what's nuts, you have to define anybody who disagrees with them as hateful. You have to silence those people, because the truth wipes lies away. That is why we can't, if we sit around and say the emperor is wearing clothes when he's stark naked, it only takes one person to say, guess what? The emperor is naked, and by the way, he's a guy. He's not a girl, even though he thinks he's the empress. It doesn't matter, right? So you have to silence those. So what do you got? You got lies on both sides. You have only the people who are saying You only can allow the people who are saying, I'm a woman because I feel like a woman. And then on the right, you can only allow the people who are angry enough and mean enough to say, you're lying. You're a liar, right? Because the person who says what I just said is going to be silenced. That's the person who goes on Twitter and says, look, I feel for you, but a man is not a woman. Silenced. He's gone. All you've got now is hate on the left and is nonsense on the left and nonsense on the right. This works for the left. The left likes this because it makes right-wingers look intolerant when in fact they're not. Anybody who's ever hung out with right-wingers know that they say all kinds of nonsense about their theories about this and their theories about that, but they welcome people in all the time because they take each person as an individual. Individualism is at the heart of conservatism. So they're not intolerant, but you can make them look intolerant by saying something stupid, censoring them, and then leaving only the hateful people left to speak. It also works for the media because outrage gets clicks and ratings. But it makes all of us stupid, and it makes our debate stupid, and it makes our debate angry. And this is the work of leftism. Rightism has not done this. At least it hasn't done it since I was a little kid. It doesn't silence the people on the other side. It loves for leftists to come out and make these stupid statements because it's easy to tear them to shreds. But I think it's bad for all of us. I think it makes all of us a little sick, a little stupid, a little more angry, a little bit more intolerant. There's a thing called transgenderism. It affects almost no one. The numbers are so tiny. In a country this big, it's going to work up to over 1 million people. And you go, wow, 1 million people, that's a lot of people. But why are we even talking about it? We're talking about it because Obama used it to distract from the failure of his presidency, the failure of his actual policies. He brought it up, just like he brought up cops killing people. It was all to distract from the absolute failure of the Obama policies. That's what it was for. And so now we're stuck in this debate because the left is always protecting the Democrats.